Nier Automata's anime just had its episode 1 release. What's it about? What does it cover from the game? Is it a good anime adaptation? Let's talk about that. It starts off with 2B monologuing about how cruel the world is. Cuts to the beginning of the game with 2B in the flight suit as 1D gets torn apart by a freaking laser, which is awesome. En route to the abandoned factory. And one of the things that I noticed about episode 1 in particular is that it mirrored a lot of the angles and shots from the game, including gameplay bits, which is a nice reference. It seems like the flight suit uses a ton of CGI, or at least a different animation style from when it's just the 2D characters. I'm not the best at labeling different kinds of animation styles, but what I will say is, while the transition from going from the flight suit to 2B out of it was a little bit jarring just because of how different the animation style was to me, it grew on me. And I really like that they did it when 2B breaks through the wall of the factory at the end of the flight section, just like in the game. And they could use swapping these different animation styles as an analog to how the game changes perspective a ton, or goes from one genre to another, and I'm interested to see how they use it from here on out. Then it cuts to the opening, and while it doesn't sound like Nier to me, but honestly I still like the song. The projection idea to display the characters is a neat one, and makes it seem like it's the pod, or the pods, telling us the story. But then they do something interesting, and one of the biggest changes from the game already. They cut to the beginning of Route B. Now, for those who don't know, Nier Automata had two initial routes. Route A, which you play immediately, and then Route B, which you play after you complete Route A. Route A is through the perspective of 2B. It's far more combat-oriented because she is 2B. She's an all-purpose battle android. Then you beat the story, and it's really nice and all, but then the game says, okay, now do Route B, and you play through Route B through the eyes of 9S, which is far more psychological and focused on hacking than in Route A. Now, that works for a video game because that is a video game mechanic with multiple playthroughs. You can tell that story in the video game medium with those multiple playthroughs. But with an anime, it's going to be harder to ask people to, say, watch the same show again with some minor alterations. Because at least with the game, you have different gameplay associated with 9S. You have different collectibles you can find in the world. Additional side quests become available to you. And while I believe that combining routes A and B for the anime will be the most controversial aspect of it, I believe it will ultimately be a good decision. Now, the execution of this decision will depend upon how the rest of the show turns out. But I think combining them for the anime is more cohesive and more conducive even to the anime format. So we see the machine trying to bring his brother back with a bucket of oil, which is way quicker than it was in the freaking game. And 9S just pitying the thing, honestly, saying it won't work. But then we cut back to 2B absolutely wrecking house, and honestly, I'm liking the fight scenes, which is one of the biggest points of contention I had going in, is how they're going to animate these fight scenes. And I think they did a pretty good job of it. The choreography looks fun and fluid, but also visceral at the same time. The pod coming in out of nowhere and blasting that one machine with the machine gun was cool as hell. I love that bit. But then they outdo themselves here with 2B using the pod's laser to destroy the saw hand. Holy crap, is that thing way more powerful than it is in the game. In the game, the thing honestly feels like a little, tickle, as if you're, lightly touching the saw blade with a feather duster. In the anime, it feels like I can split the moon in half with it. And here's where one of the changes in the anime takes place, and one of the subtle ones, I think, that I'm a big fan of right now, because I adore the way they are foreshadowing this for the anime. When 2B realizes that it's 9S who saved her, she grips her sword extra hard before despawning it. That is a brilliant point of foreshadowing, because it's telling you, the viewer, hey, there's something deeper here. Why is 2B reacting this way to 9S? And if you know the story from the game, you know why. And that sense of there being something deeper going on, that we don't have all the pieces yet, that there is information that is deliberately being left to the side, not for us right now, is one of the key driving forces behind the story. And there's another little scene like this. Blink and you'll miss it. But when 9S calls her 2B for the first time, she has another moment of shock as if she's remembering something when 9S calls her 2B. It's a very subtle thing, but it's an important detail. And let's take a moment to step aside and just take in everything that's happening so far in this show. I'm so glad they aren't going for a one-for-one retelling of the game, because I don't believe that would have worked. You have to adapt this story, adapt it in a way that is conducive to the anime format, and the way they're doing the foreshadowing between the relationship between 9S and 2B, to me, is an interesting idea to pursue. I need to see how they follow up on it, how they execute upon this idea. But right now, I'm really satisfied with what they're doing. But then screw all that noise, we got a giant robot fight on our hands, people! We see angles be put together, which will never not be awesome. It could be literally stick figures, and I'd still think it's cool. But I will say, I think the game gets the scale and pacing of the factory section across in a more interesting way. Scenes like Angles jumping at 2B and looking down on her are far too quick in their pacing, in my opinion, for the anime than they are in the game. It's not too much longer either, but it feels like one of those sections where they were coming up against a deadline in terms of how long this episode can be. And like, okay, where are we gonna cut time? Oh, we can cut it out of this Angles bit here. In which case, sure, like it's not too overly negative on the rest of the episode, and it still works for what it's trying to do. I just think you lose a little bit of that scale that the Angles jumping out at 2B had in the original game. Just feels a little too sped up to me. But then they do a little choreography, right? A little something something. 2B running up his arm, and the way that entire scene is framed. What I really liked about episode 1 was the camera work, in my opinion. The camera overall really added to the fight scenes and the choreography and the combat. And the way we saw Angles move in for that slamming attack, like that pincer maneuver, oh, that was clean. I loved that bit. But then we had one of my biggest question marks for the show. 9S is a scout unit. A scanner model, sorry. And because he's a scanner model, he can hack. His specialty is in hacking. Okay, cool. How are they going to translate that? Because in the game, hacking was a mechanic. Wait, if you ever played Sly Cooper before, you know, remember the hacking sections with Bentley back there? Yeah, it's kind of like those sections as well. It's a very short mini-game where you control a little turret, and the idea is to defeat the enemies. It's a twin-stick shooter in a way. Obviously, you can't just bring that over to the anime, so how are you going to do it? What they did was, they watched Code Lyoko the day before, and like, oh, that transition scene looks pretty cool, let's just do that. And honestly, I'm fine with that. It's almost like he's entering a digital realm, and has to overcome challenges on the inside. And the transition from the overworld to the hacking world was pretty nice as well. So I have high hopes for the hacking sections to come. And I love the bit of 2B destroying Angles, shot for shot from the game, and it was really well done in my opinion. Sometimes you just don't touch perfection, and that scene is one of them. And they modified the intro monologue of 2B, because after this section, they touched their black boxes, right? Because it got outnumbered because 3 more Angles showed up. They touched their black boxes, wipe them all out, go back to the bunker up in outer space. 2B wakes up, still has some memories, so she realizes, hey, 9S must have backed up our memories. Great. And then she gives you a little bit of a monologue. And for those who don't know, at the beginning of Nier Automata, literally the intro, like when you hit new game, it goes to a white screen, and you have this monologue as it fades into the flight unit section. But they do a little bit something different, because they change the ending of the monologue. And that to me is a very interesting pivot in their own overall design philosophy for Route A and Route B. Because the way it ends in the anime is she'd like to keep the hope that he'll be happy, and implying that it's 9S that she's referring to. While in the game, she talks about how she wonders who created this cruel world, and if there is a god, how she would love the chance to kill him or destroy him. So it's pivoting from the internal monologue of 2B being more wrathful in nature, wanting retribution for the life she's been stuck in, perpetually trapped in this cycle. And in the anime, it's pivoting over to a more introspective take in fleshing out her inner thoughts about 9S. I want to see how they execute on this idea, but I'm not opposed to this direction shift for the anime. Like I said, if you're gonna combine Route A and Route B, then 2B caring about 9S is no longer a secret. So introducing that bit earlier on might make sense and recontextualize how certain scenes later on in the anime will be taken by the viewer. Because for those who don't know, in the game, it's not revealed till a little bit later on, and sprinkled here and there throughout. And even there at the end of the factory bit of the intro of the game, it was kind of hinted at as well. But by the end of Route A, it's confirmed that 2B really does care for 9S. And then you can do route B, having that information, which recontextualizes certain interactions. But if you have that information in the anime and you're combining routes A and B, then I don't see a problem with them at least heavily implying that information earlier on. It's an interesting direction shift for the anime, and I'm interested to see where it goes. And now, the best part of the show. Oh, and by the way, she clenches her fist like in the game as 9S walks away after telling her that he could only save her memories and not his own. Which is, again, a nice touch and an interesting way to end the episode. But let's be honest, the best part was this puppet show outro. Oh my god, I love this bit. 2B just silently touching black boxes to represent self-destruction in the bunker was hilarious, and I love how they're going to use that for a little bit of comedic relief. And I find it's a really interesting way to showcase the alternate endings, but I have no idea how the hell they will do ending Y, but I need to see it. And for those who don't know, the original game had endings for each letter in the alphabet, A through Z, with endings A, B, C, D, and E being for the main story and the rest of them just being joke endings. And they showed the one in this one, right? Where if you use the self-destruct mechanic in the bunker, it just blows everything up and cuts to credits. So I think using the puppets for that is an interesting way to showcase all those alternate endings. I'm really interested to see where they go from here. Overall, I think the show's pretty dang good. I was satisfied with the first episode, and I'm a massive fan of Nier Automata. For those who don't know, it's my favorite game of all time, and I've made multiple videos as to why it's my favorite game of all time on the channel. I love the game to death, and I was very pessimistic about how they were going to adapt a story that was designed from the ground up to be told within the video game medium into the anime format. And I've said over the months that, hey, I think you're going to need to take some artistic liberties with this and change it up a bit to make it more suited for the anime style. You can't just tell this story one for one like it was in the game. I just don't think it will work. And I'm glad to see that they're heading in that direction. Now, I will say this, I have no idea what will happen in episode 2, and I played the entire game. Why is that? Because it's Yoko Taro, and you can't trust anything that happens in the story with him. You can't do it, because he will surprise you at every given turn. But in a good way most of the time. I'm not even sure if Yoko Taro is involved with the anime, now that I think about it. But still, I'll be very interested to find out what happens next in the anime, and I'm looking forward to watching the show. And honestly, at the end of the day, I'm just happy. I'm happy that my favorite game of all time is getting a show that seemingly is a good watch and a good adaptation so far. Really looking forward to the next bit. So I hope you all enjoyed the video and enjoyed this review. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of episode 1 of Nier Automata's anime. Have you played the game? Have you not played the game? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your perspective. And while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And click the bell icon to be notified for future videos when I upload them. Stay safe out there, everybody. Have a great day. Go watch some anime. Go play some video games. Stay safe. Have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.